for today's guest is not only my role model, but she's my cousin. This is Jas Maylin. She spent years training to become a psychotherapist, got her master's degree in counseling, and was knee deep in her doctorate program, 1 year away from finishing, and she walked away. Not because she failed, but because she got honest with what she actually wanted. So she left a doctorate, a career path, the entire identity she built around being a therapist. And she went all in something else that felt a little bit less safe, but way more hers. She's now an author, a spiritual entrepreneur, an EFT tapping and human design expert, and the host of her own podcast called The Sensitive, Spiritual, and Successful. The core of everything she teaches is that sustainable success starts from the inside first. The external life is just the reflection. And honestly, that's exactly what this show is about. So I'm so honored to have her as my first guest here. Jas Maylin, welcome to the Unclocked and Unbothered podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you, Jenna. It's so nice to be here. I feel like you've watched my journey from when I was, unsure of what I wanted to do, and you've just watched me go through all of this. So, I'm so happy to share it with you all. As I'm looking back at my journey, I'm like, wow, this has been like 6 years in the making, and now I'm here, and it feels so good. So, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, as your little cousin, getting to see, we're 5 years apart, right? And getting to see almost like my role model be able to transition and go into different avenues and different roles and transform into who you've become today really just shows like the real side of what it takes to become an entrepreneur, because everybody really shows like the after, but you're the definition of building it block by block. And that's before we get into everything of what you've built, I want to go back. I want you to paint the audience a picture because I've know this. Um, Before the shift, did it actually feel like living that life before entrepreneurship?
So, before I got into it, I was working as a psychotherapist. I had actually started my own private practice. So I was serving sensitive women with anxiety, depression, relational trauma, all of that. And it's not that I didn't enjoy my job. What happened was I had a baby and I had to juggle all of the things that I didn't know that when I had my first, that I would want to be home with her all the time and that I wanted to be like a stay at home mom, a homeschool mom. So everything kind of shifted. And when I looked at my life, I was like, well, this isn't sustainable because here I am, even though I had a private practice, having my own schedule and everything, I realized I cannot be like processing all this trauma with people and having all these clients every week. Um, it would just be too much because I wouldn't be able to show up like emotionally, right, for my kids, and now I have 3, but that was like kind of the pivotal point there. What it felt like before was I was starting to get frustrated that I felt like I was meant for more and that I could impact more people, and that's kind of why I brought more coaching in because I knew I could serve a larger audience instead of just being, as a psychotherapist, you can only work with at in a certain area, location because that's where you're licensed, right? So I was like, "Okay, I know I'm meant for more, and how do I do this?" And that frustration was, "Okay, I have this identity. How do I kinda do the 2?" And I remember early in my career, I had an online presence as a coach, but I was still a psychotherapist, and what I was posting online, people would be messaging me in crisis because 'cause I'd be, pumping out educational content. I don't know how these people do it, honestly, when they go online. People will be like, "Can you help me? Can you help me?" I that just traumatic things. I'm like, "Okay, wait, this is not blending well. Like, this isn't therapy, this is coaching," and it's so I was really, really trying to battle so many things that I wanted to do, and the only way I was able to do that was give myself permission to go in the direction I truly wanted to, and I had to let go of everything I knew. And so, yeah, I it really just to sum up that feeling was that it was kind of a little bit of frustration of how do I don't wanna do all of this. I kinda wanna go here, but I'm scared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's when you're in psychotherapy, there's a lot of boundaries that come with it. So when you bring yourself into an online platform, you have to kind of reestablish those boundaries back into a whole different energy, which is online and showing up and being present there. Um, which brings me to my next question is you had all these feelings of being conflicted, but what did you do next?
Okay, so it's it's really funny how this all transpired. I remember being on my couch and learning about human design. And I had pulled up my chart, it's I don't know if anyone here is familiar with human design, but it's a synthesis of all this ancient wisdom, astrology, the chakra system, the Chinese I Ching, all of these things. So it's like how your energetic blueprint or what your energetic blueprint consists of, how you're here to move in the world, your purpose, all of this stuff. And so I remember I had a baby. She was sleeping, and babies wake up every 3, 4 hours. And I was laying on my couch reading about my human design. And I knew I was going to regret this because obviously, as a new mom, you have to be sleeping. But I was deep in this rabbit hole of learning more about myself. And so, with all these feelings of like being conflicted and what should I do next? And I know I'm meant for more, I was reading my human design and I learned that I was a 3-5 emotional generator. And basically, the not self theme. So, when you're kind of not in alignment, you'll be feeling a lot of frustration. And every type has their own not self theme. I was like, wow, okay, yeah, I'm feeling a little frustrated with like what I'm supposed to be doing next. And the theme that, when you are more in alignment and things are flowing, you feel really satisfied. And so I remember thinking, okay, well, what do I need to do? What needs to happen? And you had mentioned that I was knee deep in a doctorate. So I I think she was only 4 months old, I got accepted into a doctorate program. So I was starting this new path and I'm like, "Oh my god, what am I doing? Like, how am I going to separate this all?" And so, yeah, that conflicted energy of everything. But I took my human design and I said, "Okay, if this is true," basically, just to sum it up really quick, if you are operating according to your human design, your purpose will unfold, right? There's a lot of different parts of the chart, but I just took that one piece of information and I remember saying, okay, if you're operating in alignment, things are going to unfold the way it needs to. And so for me as a generator, I wrote down all the things that were frustrating me. And I remember being like, okay, well, how do I knock some of this down? And it wasn't like a process where it was, I'm going to take everything that's frustrating me and I'm going to just like be done with it. That that process of elimination was scary and it was kind of just one by one by one. So I was working for the university as well. And I was like, okay, this isn't going to work because I can't sit in meetings anymore. What else is frustrating me? I would just kind of plan my escape
Mhm.
of how to rearrange my life, how I was showing up on social media. Um, that was frustrating me. I'm like, well, I need to be more authentic to me. What excites me? Like generators are here to do what lights them up, what excites them. And so I had to really, really and truly, if I could sum it all up, I really just had to figure out who I was and what I liked doing and being honest with myself. And that was just the process of it all. Because I trained in psychotherapy, I could take that information that I read and use the tools that I had to kind of brainwash myself into being that person. And again, it sounds like it happens overnight. Um, but it's a process because you're doing the deconditioning. You're basically getting closer to who you are as a person and what you truly enjoy in life. And I don't know why, but that's a scary thing for a lot of people because we follow everyone else's expectations. We follow everyone else's rules to make other people happy. Our family,
Mhm.
right? They have expectations for us, and rightfully so. I know where that comes from. But to take a path that your family doesn't agree on or they don't understand and they kind of, I don't know, villainize it or just like shoot it down and to persist anyway is a wild journey.
It sounds like human design was kind of like that pivotal point of helping you alongside your psychotherapy work, deconditioning what it takes to actually do the work. But a big part of that is also the conditioning that comes from our family. It's probably a very big influence on you as well.
Yeah, I think, you know, with our family, you don't wanna disappoint them. They made a lot of sacrifices, you just wanna make them proud, they have a certain expectation, and so when I went this into this path that they did not understand, they didn't really understand my counseling and psychotherapy path either, right? Because mental health isn't really, um, understood in our culture, and so that was already pushback, like, "What are you doing?" But I still did it anyway, I got the master's and it was like, "Oh, okay, she's for real. Okay, now she's actually doing something." But to pivot from something academic into something very what some would consider woo-woo
Mm-hmm.
or you're like, "What is this even?" There was a lot of pushback. There was a lot of, "What are you even sharing? Is this fortune telling? Do you have a demon inside of you?" Um, and that was hard because you wanted to explain it like, if you knew this information about yourself, you would feel so liberated and you'd give yourself permission to just be yourself, and I think that's the journey of life is just wanting to feel like yourself. You don't wanna feel like you're performing, you don't wanna feel like you have to do something just because someone is making you like, human design has taught me I have my gifts. No 2 people are the same. I have my gifts, I have my roles, and I'm going to pave my own path in my own lane and you can follow along and watch me. Okay, actually, for everyone listening, when you go on Instagram and like TikTok, the most successful people are literally just being themselves. Like
It's so
they
true.
are, and I noticed that. I had noticed that that's what people were doing. In my therapy practice, after work with me, they'd say, I feel so authentic. And I realized like that is the goal. You just want to feel like you. And so going through the process of trying to explain to people who don't understand that, wait, no, this is actually me. Everything I built my identity on, everything you loved me for, everything that you thought that I could be and show up as, I don't want to do that. And that is really scary for, I think, our family, especially, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they're like, well, there's no solid ground here. You sound crazy. How am I going to brag about you to our family? You like don't sound like you have it together. You have kids that you have to support. What are you even doing? But my saving grace, I will give a huge shout out to is my husband because he always said he always just wanted me to be happy. And anything I pursued, he was my number one fan. He's a Virgo, so he always pointed out little mistakes here and there if I sent out an email or I did a social media post and there was a typo or whatever. God bless our Virgos. But he always was like, "I see your potential and you're gonna go out and get it. Just do it." "What do you mean? You wanna write a book? Of course you can." Right? And I'd be like, "Okay, this guy really believes in me. How do I go and do that?" So, I was really fortunate to have someone who really believed in me. I spoke to you about my journey. So, I think we can really focus on, yes, we're disappointing a lot of people, but you can find people that will support you and that see your vision, even if they don't understand your vision. Like, they're just like, "Yeah, I think you can do it." And that's all you need.
It really goes to show you that if you have the confidence and you truly believe in yourself, that's what you need to kind of just ignore the rest, ignore the noise and continue to focus on yourself. I would say with our family, they're very religion based. So anything that doesn't really fall upon the religion or to the extent of their own knowledge, they do kind of shame you around or make you feel very limited. That's just our experience. I feel like a lot of people could resonate with that in so many different ways. If you're not going to school, if you really want to focus on your creativity, I mean, this world needs that. And I think as a spirit baby intuitive, which we'll get into in a whole other time, Children are coming down, or souls are coming down in a whole different frequency, a very different frequency than our parents. That's different for our parents because it's a whole different shift when it comes to parenting. Our parents now think that we're supposed to learn from them and they're just our parents and we have to respect them. And there are a lot of parents that are also very unconventional and can help expand their child's mind. Both can learn from each other, and that's what I'm hoping to kind of bring out to the world and show new parents in my work. But yeah, it really just takes a lot of confidence as well when you don't have that support. But looking back, what was the core belief that you were running on that was keeping you in a life that wasn't yours? And what came up from that?
I think the first thing was that, like, I'm not allowed to do what I really wanna do. Like, I'm not allowed to just have fun with my work. I need to work hard, right? I need to work for all the things that I have, and, like, yes, I can work hard, but I can have fun too, and I think that's what my human design taught me, that you can find what excites you and what drives you and your purpose and what you're here to give the world, and that can support you and sustain you. Like, it I think because I had kids, the thing was I needed to have energy to be with my kids. I cannot do things that drain me because I'm going to be a miserable person in the house, right? And so I had to really dismantle that belief that, like, work can be fun. I don't have to just work hard in order to be successful. It can feel like ease, it can feel like flow. Um And then, yeah, I had to work through that. I had to give myself permission. And I did use EFT tapping, right? Because I think what happens with why we need to work on the subconscious is because we are growing up, we have all these beliefs thrown at us and we just take them in like it's our truth. But when you do the inner work, you realize that's someone else's voice, that's someone else's belief. I don't have to believe that. And you see the world through your beliefs, right? And so when you talked about um, telling your parents things, or I'm sharing things with my parents, they can't see past their own lens, like, right, your beliefs are the glasses you put on and how you see the world. And so when I started to expand or do the work and expand my view of the world, it was like, wait, no, this is possible. Like, I can have flow and ease and fun working, and, like, possibilities are endless for me. And even though it's, like, scary, and my parents may think, like, this isn't sustainable for you, you need to actually get a real job and work for someone else. I'm like, but I don't have to. I really think that I have the capability to do this. And so step by step, again, it's not that it's super easy and things are just going to pop off. You have to learn the skills to build, but doing the inner work allowed me to, like, align myself to that there's possibilities available for me, and that I had to do the work to become that person to keep moving forward. There's going to be disappointments, there's going to be setbacks, there's going to be times where you're like, am I cut out for this? And I think entrepreneurship is just that. It is, you have to be open to self-development and personal development because you're going to fail, you're going to fall, and it's how you get back up. And so doing all of that work and having EFT tapping in my back pocket, which is just a mind body tool to help you work through emotions, limiting beliefs, doubts. Just know that your thoughts are just thoughts and you don't have to believe them, and being able to tap on your doubts and your thoughts and be able to move through, right? Because you work through your emotional brain into, like, the more logical brain. And so when you tap, you get that this part of your brain. You're like, "Oh, wait, no, I don't have to believe that. Oh, wait, no, I do see that more clearly." And I think that's the best thing about EFT because it's effective. If you can uncover your limiting beliefs, you can rewrite your limiting beliefs with EFT tapping.
And I think that's exactly what entrepreneurship is all about. It's literally going into it and learning for yourself. I think you also mentioned about that you wanted to have fun with it. That's how it started. You wanted, not everything had to be a struggle. That's your main motivation was, I enjoy doing this, so let me just try it and see how I feel. Like, our feelings can be a really good guide as well. There's nothing you can lose from like taking the opportunity that feels easy because you can use that as a guide to go on to your next opportunity.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned how taking the entrepreneurial route can take years and nobody really sees that. I like to use the analogy of, let's say you were going to become a doctor and how many years of schooling you have to go to do that, right? So it's just another path that is going to take you years to master. So when people are hoping that, they can become their own boss overnight, they quickly realize that it takes a lot more than that. But I feel like being able to choose, everything's going to be hard, but it's really what feels natural to you, what feels fun, um, what feels like it is motivating you to have your own life, a life that you get to choose.
Mm.
So, thank you so much for being able to talk about everything that kind of created who you are today. And now I want to kind of segue into what life actually looks like now, because I think that version of yourself that you were kind of talking about, you left your career to build something spiritual and then it actually becomes reality. So what does that reality look like for you? What does it feel like for you?
Yeah, I think I wanted to touch on something right before. You had mentioned like it can be fun and it's going to be like a challenge and things, and you pick your challenge. I think we've had this conversation before, right? Where you pick your hard, and so those 6 years of when I first found human design and looking at how I can align to my human design and how this can change my life. Um, it's going to sound really amazing, but please don't forget the years that it took to really get to this place. But right now, it is really, really great. I was able to write a book. What we talked about earlier, too, with EFT tapping and human design, how to become that person. I used my knowledge and background, and I pitched my first book to a publisher. And I was like, I'm going to do this with or without you. If you want in, this is going to be great. I know it. And I signed a contract and I wrote my first book. So I'm so like, it felt like it wasn't real because I was showing up to these meetings with so much confidence and self-worth, thanks to the work I had been doing, the inner work I had been doing. And so when it was like, "Oh, wow, I'm actually doing this," and, like, to see my book, in person is crazy. I think I didn't even wanna open it for a little bit because I was like, "Oh my god, I wrote that." Like, I don't know. It's people talk about all this success and you kind of have to process it. Like you're expanding your nervous system for success. The more you go, the more you achieve, the more you go out and do things. And I think that's also the work that people need to remember. So even though it sounds really great, I sometimes look at it, I'm like, "Oh, that's me." Like this is crazy that this is me. Um and then I also host and run the Ultimate Human Design Summit. So a lot of my work I was having a hard time building an audience or building people around me, a community around me. And so in my human design, my life purpose theme is the right angle cross of planning. And I had read about it obviously for years, and it was like you bring community together and you're really good at details and setting things up and things like of that nature. And so I learned about a virtual summit and how to use this in your business. And I was like, I think I need to do this. And what was I, pregnant with my third, and I had run my first one, and it was a huge success, like almost 1,000 people. And then we ran a second one the next year, and it was, almost 1,400 people. Um, and it's been a wild ride. Like the audience, the people, the community that I wanted around me happened in like 2 years. Like, and I'm running the third one on May 13th, so this might pass by the time this gets released, but it's crazy to think that it it's happening, and it has happened. And that's my life now. Like every day, my full-time job is really being home with my kids. This is like a seasonal kind of like fun event that we plan, and it's really great. And I get to connect with community and uplift other human design experts. I think that's the coolest part, is that I get to hype them up. I get to be out there hosting. And 6 years ago, I never thought I could, one, be interviewed. I did not like the sound of my voice. I struggled so much with like showing up, sharing my story. I thought nobody cared. When you talked about limiting beliefs, those were all beliefs that I had. Like, no one cares what you have to say. You don't know how to speak. People don't want to listen to you. Your voice is so annoying. Like, these are all the thoughts that were in my head. And so when you really, really look back at it all, from where I came from to where I was, the journey of entrepreneurship has really just allowed me to love myself in ways that I never thought I could. I like, or to even accept myself, because I was so hard on myself before, and now like sharing your voice with the world, like, is yeah, like I never thought I would be here, but doing the inner work and following your path and following your heart really does get you to where you want to be.
That was such a beautiful human answer. And it's almost like human design and your spiritual entrepreneurship like gave you permission to be authentic to yourself. It's what you needed to kind of like outgrow those limiting beliefs, because those are actually beliefs that, with our 5 year difference, I'm feeling today. And a lot of the times I have to say, just fake it until you make it. Like, just continue to practice, show up, because let's say your voice is annoying, but you have things that if somebody can take 1 minute out of this podcast and use it to create their business or give them some kind of creative flow, that is our duty as like intuitive beings, and especially as women. You say that your first job is being a mother. That is so important. That's exactly what this world needs to this day, is more women that are doing things they're choosing for themselves, and they're teaching their children to do exactly that. They're raising their children in a state where she's authentic, she's running something and creating something that actually gives her a lot of time back. When you were mentioning about how you saw your book come out and you're like, that's me, or you're creating these summits and you're like, oh my God, I'm the person behind all that, right? And it never really settles in, but it's such a human experience to be able to, create something so powerful and be like, oh my God, like at the end of the day, that's just like my inner self has created this, and it's not like connecting. How long did it actually take you before life started to feel more stable and not just like exciting or fun, but like what actually felt like, okay, this is me, like I've created this? And maybe you're still at a state where it can feel shocking at a lot of times, but when did it start to feel like, yeah, I created that?
Probably now.
Yeah.
This is my third summit, and yeah, and being able to talk about my experience, I realize how at ease I am with my story and my come up, I guess. Um, yeah, I think it's really just been now past few months. I took a lot of time from my last summit, to now. I think you knew that, where we talked about quantum leaping, and um I had to really sit with all of my accomplishments. I think I'm naturally somebody who just wants to like go and do and achieve and just see what's possible, and while, still being home. So but I have big dreams and I want to see them come into fruition. Like, I want to see them come to life. But I think when I took a lot of time off and I created more systems in my home to, have my home life, like the cleaning schedule, everybody's schedule is like locked in. Um, I sat with like everything that I've done. And I think I've come out of those few months of focusing elsewhere and not so much work, that I had to be like, yeah, no, this is me. Like, I've created all of this. And I often say that to my husband too, like, holy cow, this is me. This is crazy. And he'll be like, yeah, I knew you could do it. Yeah, it's like, it's really settling in. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about it all, because I can feel inside that it's just flowing more naturally, that I can talk about like, yeah, I did all that. Holy crap, I did that. And it feels really good.
That's kind of the sign of like how you're actually embodying. And throughout all these 6 years, you saying that as of like right now it's starting to settle in. You can see that in the way that you talk about your work. And I think behind the scenes, we've talked about how more recently, um, we both kind of shifted and we've been in this like quantum leap or this quantum field of like adjusting our frequency to becoming that person that we need to be able to hold that space, to be able to show up in the work and be able to facilitate it confidently while also being able to express it to the world. And I want to know, who is the version of you that exists now that couldn't have existed inside that old life? Like, do you feel like there's any pull towards that old life? Does a version of you that almost finished that doctorate ever show up and say something?
Oh, this is so good. Um, I think maybe glimpses of it, of what could be. I think I had to redefine what success looked like for me, and I think everybody needs to do that, right? And so even though sometimes there's like, yes, I was going this path and yes, I was doing all of this cool stuff that probably looked really good on paper, that sounded legit. When I go back to what I really wanted for my life, there's no way that I could go back to that. Now, I will say, because I am such a big dreamer and I was going and doing all of these things that I had set my mind to or my heart to, um, the only part that I would say would bring me back to my old self was the less confident version of me. Like, do I deserve this? And I talked to you a lot about this, where it was like, well, why do I get this easier life? I have such a supportive partner. I can go out and follow my dreams and see what's possible because he's holding it down. I had time to do that. So that's probably like the old voices in my head. So when I go and do, that's probably why I couldn't look at my book, maybe. Like when I had it in my hand where I was like, I don't even want to open it. Like, that's me. I had to keep expanding my capacity to receive, and that telling myself that it's okay to have um these great things happen. And it's funny because consciously I'm like, this is what I want, but my subconscious is like kind of sometimes brings me back down, where it's like, who are you? Who are you even, like, to think that you can do this? And maybe that is a voice. Someone else's voice. Like, don't think too highly of yourself. Don't think that you're all that. But in order to achieve the things you want, you have to be that. You have to believe that you can do that. That's the only time I would say my old self would come in. It's my less confident self, my doubts, um, saying like, "How come you can do this?" Actually, I remember having a conversation with a friend, and I was on the phone with her, and I said, "Yeah, like, I homeschool and I do all of this, at home, and I have this business and I wanna write a book." And it was like, "Yeah, well, I would do that too if I had, a husband who could take care of me, or if I could." Like, it just sounded like I was just lucky, and that got to me. I think that really got into my head because I was like, yeah, I am really lucky, and maybe I don't deserve this, and maybe I shouldn't be able to do all this because other people are struggling, and if they're struggling, I should be struggling. And I felt bad for that. I don't know. I know it sounds backwards now, but it really got to my head. Like, why am I allowed to do this in this lifetime? Why am I so fortunate, and is it all just going to get ripped from underneath me if I keep going? Am I too lucky? So,
Mhm.
yeah, those are all just the random thoughts that I've had.
Yeah, that's why I love to have people like you on this podcast, because people love to glamorize like that after effect. And so people go on social media, people like me, people like you, and we'll go on social media and we'll say, oh, wow, like this person just sold their business for $1 billion. Like they are so lucky. They just had to be at the right place at the right time. But then we go into these conversations and we realize that this person had to deal with so many limiting beliefs, so many shadows, so many identity shifts. They had to go through years of humility and being humble, not from people, but also their own inner voice, to be able to come out and be like, yeah, I did that. And that's what people see. They see that part, that closing part of that confident person. And because they don't understand the full story, or they don't understand the depths that that person had to go through that, they label it as something that is attainable to themselves, which is being called lucky.
Mhm.
But for the entrepreneur themselves, they know that it's been a journey, and it's still a journey. And yeah, they still have those fears. They feel like the carpet's going to be, pulled beneath them. They feel like it's going to be lost at any time, and those are just fears like anything else. Like all those fears that we had creating the business, you're still going to have those fears, but you're able to take the tools that you've learned to understand that those are just thoughts, and
Yeah.
they will kind of go like every other thought, and you will
M-
come out stronger for it.
yes. Move towards the fear because you're going to
Yeah.
learn so much about yourself. And I
Mhm.
think you made a really good point of people saying, oh, that person was just lucky. Sometimes I think people say that because that gives them an excuse to not try, or that
Mhm.
they don't trust that they can do it too, or that it's possible for them. And because if you chalk it up to luck, it's like, well, they didn't have to do much. I've tried so many things. I have failed at so many things. Um, that's just part of my human design. I'm a third line. I'm here to try. I'm not saying that you need to, I don't know, try and do all of the things. Um, I had my human design in front of me, but I'm like, I just want to see if this will work. And I learn by doing things. I figure out what works by doing what doesn't. And so that's natural for me. So my story might be like, well, Jazz, if you had your human design, how did you not just fall into it? I always knew it, but I just had to try to see if it was like, what can I learn from this? What skill can I
Mhm.
take from this? Um, and so, yeah, I think it takes a lot of resilience, and I think it takes a lot of self compassion and self acceptance to walk this path. And I still walk this path with everyone. Again, I don't ever want it to sound like I have it all figured out. Um, I think I just love myself through all the ups and downs. That's it.
Mhm. And I also want to mention that I think I'm also a 3-5
You are.
generator.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it can show you a bit of a difference between somebody and their risk threshold. So it's how much risk they're willing to take to be able to create a life of freedom or the life that they choose. And you being able to talk about the things that you've learned and the things that you failed. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and I don't want to waste my time. I think that's like my biggest limiting belief that I still have to this day, is that I don't want to start something because I know like I cannot risk wasting that time. Like I think it was just like programmed in me to be like I cannot invest this money because I cannot waste my time. I always like to say that I have a life of no regrets, but I would say that is my biggest regret, is not being able to just dive into something that maybe might interest me. Like
Mm.
doing more of the things and opening up my risk threshold to allow myself to explore deeper. And it's something that I am working through now. So it just kind of shows you the different perspectives of um, people, like even in our human design, where we're the same. There's a lot of different profile lines that come with human design that I've learned actually through your book. And everybody has their own different outcome. But I would just say that to the person that wants to start something and go from there, like obviously assess your risk, but maybe like give yourself a little bit more grace when it comes to it, because you can learn something from anything that you take on, even if you don't do it. I mean, hey, I spent almost 6 years in school and to become like a hearing specialist, and I did that for a couple years, and I was kind of thrown out of it, and I'm taking that as an invitation to go deeper. And like I could say that I wasted those 6 years, but no, I learned a lot from it. So I learned what I
Oh.
don't want.
That's
Right?
but that's exactly it. Anything that you move towards, you're gonna learn. I Same thing, I think, thinking that I've wasted a lot of time going through this path, like, I wouldn't be who I am, I wouldn't know what I know, I wouldn't have the tools that I have, had I not studied psychology, psychotherapy, and counseling. Um,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
so how you communicate with people, how you show up, all these skills you take with you, and that's on the person who's going through the journey to realize that, to look back and say, everything has happened in my life for a reason. And what can I pack with me on this new journey forward? You don't have to take everything, but take what's going to help you, take what's going to support you. And when you were talking about your like risk aversion,
Hmm.
I feel like I have that thought, but I can't not do it. Like I have the thought of like this better not waste my time, or it's not going to bring out the outcome that I want. I've had that, but I still do it anyway. And yes, the
Yeah.
outcome isn't what you want the outcome to be, but when you look back at it, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I learned how to run Facebook ads. I'm so glad I learned how to um I don't know, write in this way to have people come into my world. Um, so yeah, it's like you got to tinker around and play. You don't have to put all your chips in one basket, but yeah, just kind of like getting in there a little bit.
It's true. Like you have this idea of an outcome, but you're kind of closing yourself off if you don't do it to an outcome that you might not even fathom, right?
Yeah.
So, as we close off, I just want to ask you one more question. So, what do you want to say to that person who's exactly where you were? Maybe like 1 year into finishing their doctorate and they know that it isn't for them anymore and they're just trying to figure out a way to leave without losing everything and talking about that risk aversion again, right? So.
Mm, yeah. No matter what you do, no matter what you choose, you have to be happy with your decision. And what do you need to do to get to that version of the success you hold in your mind? And even though it's scary to let things go, things can't come into your life unless you do make space for it. And sometimes it requires, like, I'm not saying quit your job and jump right all like right in. I had mentioned about like just trying and tinkering. I was juggling both worlds for a while until I realized, no, this is the path that I want to take. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to learn how to make a name for myself in this space. I could have gone the psychotherapy world and had, a bigger practice and a supervisor. But when I thought about that, that's not what I wanted. So figure out exactly what you want, figure out how you want your life to feel like, write down what you value, make sure they're your values, not someone else's. And as you move forward, the only thing you need to do is love yourself through the ups and downs. Know that your self doubt isn't, it's going to pop up just because we are human, and just keep moving forward. Even if it's 1%, one step, what can you do to get to that version that you have, that version of success that you have?
That's exactly what I want these viewers to hear is like if you feel that pull, take that as an invitation. Take that as an invitation to go deeper.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot that, was written for you and it needs to be explored. And the worst case that can happen is that you just go back into like that doctorate. And that's still an
Mhm.
amazing life, right? Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and speak with your little cousin today. And I know you promoted the book and your summit is coming up. I have the book here. It kind of talks about EFT tapping and human design, which is beautifully how we discussed your gifts on this podcast today. But is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience today, or how can they find you?
So jazz.eft.hd is my Instagram. Um, and then if you are interested in any of my summits, which I create for heart-centered entrepreneurs going through this, basically I'm making these events for my past self too. You can find that all at soulsuccesscentered.com, and you can see what I've done in the past, what I've created. If you want a human design chart, you can just go to www.jasmaylin.com and you can get a free chart there. If you're curious about what this all means.
Amazing. Yeah, I worked on these summits. I've been through these summits and they're amazing. There's something in it for everybody. She basically has 3 days full of human design like speakers, design entrepreneurs, experts, and they just kind of guide you through what it takes to build a business. Learn about your human design. You gain a lot of resources from it. So there's something for everybody that you can take from it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, and I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the first Unclocked and Unbothered episode. Jazz was a prime example of the guests that you're going to see throughout all of my podcast. Jazz said something today, actually, that I haven't stopped thinking about is that the sustainable success is built from the inside first, and the external world is just a reflection of that. I think we spend so much time trying to build the external life while neglecting the internal one. And then we wonder why it doesn't feel like enough when we get there. Jas is proof when we flip that order, what you build actually holds. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with somebody. Send it to someone who's in the middle of their own identity shift and needs to hear that the internal work is the actual work. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave a review and subscribe so that the next episode finds you automatically. If something Jas talked about today resonated with you, you can find all of her links in the show notes. Thank you guys so much again, and stay unclocked and unbothered.